And I'll never forget, as soon as I finished it up, I went and I got a job at corporate accounting. Did it for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I'll never forget coming back home to my father, who I was very, very close with at the time. And I said, Dad, I screwed up. I mean, it took me almost 8 years to get through college to get this accounting degree, and I hate it. And you're going to get people that are going to call you out of the blue and go, I want to join you, and are going to walk in the door and say, you want to join you. And I looked at him and I go, Matt, you're full of crap. And he just laughed.
Yeah.
You know, that's the hook that kind of gets people in.
Yeah.
It's the support that keeps them there. And a lot of what happens with a lot of 100% companies, you'll notice if you look them up, you know, there are 100, maybe 200 agents, because it's usually one person that puts it together, gets people in for the low fees, and then can't produce the services.
Okay, here we are, another episode of Rate of Success, and extremely excited today because we have the one and only Bill Flemming with us. So Bill runs a very large network of HomeSmart offices, has a great story, so looking forward to kind of going through that. So Bill, why don't you just give me a little introduction about where you're at now and kind of agent count and how many offices?
Yeah, we're at 10 offices within the Chicagoland area. There's 14 HomeSmart offices within the Chicagoland area. I own 10 of them. Agent count, we're at about 840.
Okay, so that's awesome. So one of the things I always talk about on this podcast is that nobody ever intends to get in the real estate business. We always kind of end up here by mistake. It's not like we go to college, we say, I'm going to be a realtor, I'm going to be a lender. It never happens that way.
100%.
So how did you stumble into real estate?
Oh, that's a great story. I'm surprised you asked me that because I haven't been asked that in a long time. But it took me a long time to go through college. I've got 8 brothers and sisters. Mom and dad couldn't afford college, so I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Worked full time all through college, and I finally got that accounting degree.
Yeah.
I'm an accountant. People that meet me, they're like, "You're an accountant, really?" But yeah, I'm an accountant. And I'll never forget. As soon as I finished it up, I went and I got a job at corporate accounting. Did it for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I'll never forget coming back home to my father, who I was very, very close with at the time. And I said, Dad, I screwed up. I mean, it took me almost 8 years to get through college to get this accounting degree, and I hate it. I just hate it. I mean, I like numbers, but I can't do this all day. And in the middle of us talking, they were about to go out to dinner with friends, and their 2 friends were John and Jane Mastrangelo, who have since passed, but they're realtors.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, Billy, you'd be a great realtor. All right.
Yeah.
And it just took off. Went to real estate school. I remember passing a Merrill Lynch Realty office and said, that's where I'm going to work. And it was a little difficult to get into there as a rookie back then.
Yeah.
A little bit tricky, but just felt right at home.
Yeah. So, okay. So you get in then. What was, obviously you've experienced a lot of different markets. You've gone through being a realtor, you've been a managing broker, but what was that like getting into the business from an accounting background? Do you lean on that accounting at all?
I do. I do. And when I was working with buyers, I'd be sitting down with them and I would do like what we ask you guys to do now. I would do the pre-qualification. I remember coming home to my wife one day and she goes, how do you do this? And you got to ask them that. She goes, you ask people how much they make?
Yeah.
I go, yeah, I got to know. So yeah, that would be a big part of my introduction process.
Yeah. So when you got into the business, obviously, what do you think the biggest change then until now? Now, obviously, relationships are the same. Technology is very much the same. But there are a lot of things that you draw on from the beginning. The reason I ask this is because a lot of people that have been in the business for a period of time don't necessarily change how they do business. It's just the way they do it is a little bit different. Do you have anything that you learned back then that you still, kind of use today?
I don't know that I do anything different. It's funny. I remember when I first got in the business, talk about change. I think the interest rates I've been in the business forever, guys.
Yeah.
But the interest rates were, I don't know, 14, 15, 16%. And I remember being this young punk, I sold a house. They'd have a board up in the front. And I go, I put another one on, and you look around the office, and everybody's looking at you like this jerk. But it was just I wasn't smart enough to know that was a bad interest rate.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a numbers guy, so I'm like, damn, this is 14%. My credit card's 21, so we're fine.
Yeah.
And everybody else in the office is freaking out. So that's one of the big changes, or one of the big reasons. That
but like, do you find that one of the things we talk a lot about is when the market was back then, we focused on very specific relationship ways where you're face to face a lot, trying to get face to face. And I feel like one of the things that a lot of newer agents struggle with is how to get more face to face and to have those conversations, because it's so easy with social media and all these things. And one of the things that I see people asking a lot in realtor groups is, how are you prospecting? How are you? So if you have a newer agent that wants to get in the business today, do you feel like there's a path that works better than others, or do you feel like it's really, dependent on the individual?
There's like 3 core areas that I used to get business when I first started. One was geographic farming.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that does that anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember they would say, hey, look at find 300 houses around your office somewhere and just mail to them on a regular basis and walk them and do open houses in there and all that kind of stuff. And that worked well for me. I got lucky because for some reason, the neighborhood directly behind the office, nobody wanted, because they thought they would all walk into the office. I go, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And I was very successful with it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is gone now. The other was open houses. When I first got in the business, and this is one of the biggest things, I just pushed an agent yesterday that called me, one of our top producers, going, hey, I'm slumping a little bit.
Yeah.
And I go, you just got to get in front of more people. Figure out a way to get in front of more people. He goes, how did you do it? I go, I did an open house. Sometimes I do 2 on Saturday, I do 2 on Sunday. I try to do them geographically and price point close to one another, because what happens is a lot of times you get the same people walking in. They go, oh my gosh, I know you. And now you've got rapport. And
I feel like open houses are one of those things that everyone gets away from, but when they get back to it, it's one of those things that have stayed true, especially now with low inventory.
Yeah.
You got some of these people getting 20, 30 people through an open house.
100%.
I mean, that's getting face-to-face easily.
And all you're trying to do is build rapport.
Yeah.
The other thing, I said I've got 8 brothers and sisters. I got really lucky. None of them got into real estate. None of their friends got into real estate.
So you get the family business.
I mean, now you've got the Brian Buffinis. Back in the day, you had the Joe Stumps and the guys that would talk to you about building your business based on referral.
Yeah.
Brian is fantastic. He's been a great mentor of mine, somebody I still kind of follow and respect and so forth. But I just by accident started, that was the biggest part of my business.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid to go sell a $20,000-$30,000 condo. My mental thought was, hey, that $20,000-$30,000 condo buyer is eventually going to sell that and buy a small house, sell that, buy something bigger. And I just kept working my sphere. And that has not changed. That's universal.
Well, I think Brian Buffini's business model of working by referral is something that, again, if you're a struggling agent, that is the single best way.
Oh yeah.
And it's, you're foolproof. It's foolproof. You're not going to have a technology take that away. You're not going to do just foreclosures and have that go away.
Yep.
You're not doing short sales. You're not paying for Zillow leads. And then all of a sudden they change the rules. It's relationships, and that no matter what happens with technology, those relationships can cultivate business forever. So I love Brian Buffini, Tom Ferry. A lot of those guys are successful because they have a system that actually works.
Yeah, and I just fell into it. I mean, Brian was my coach back 30 years ago. I'm really aging myself. None of that's changed. Your sphere of influence, they don't know your skill level.
Yeah.
So you could be a brand new person, you could be a seasoned veteran. They're not even looking at skill level.
Yeah.
They know you, they like you, they trust you, and they're going to come to you.
Yeah.
My phone still rings. I haven't shown a house in 5 years now that I run this company.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just physically don't have the time of the day, but my phone still rings, and I'm always answering it, and I'm always there, for advice. I have somebody else that's showing property, obviously, right now, but that business never goes away.
Yeah. So what was your path after you got into business, getting situated, getting your business up and running? What was that like the first 5-10 years, and the growth like, and where did you find success? And what did you learn along the way? Yeah,
one of the things I was really fortunate with is I had a very good mentor manager back then. His name was Cal Pearson with Merrill Lynch. And I remember him telling me, he put me in a desk between 2 of the top producers in the office.
Yeah.
And he said, all I want you to do is I want you to pretend like you're on the phone. And sometimes I'd sit there 8 hours a day and not get anything done myself, but I pretended like I was on the phone and I was listening to their conversations and seeing what they're doing. I went from that, and when I saw kind of the things that they were doing, the money they were making, obviously, the production they were doing, that was my number one goal. I want to be the top guy in the office. And I did. In 2.5 years, I was top guy in the office.
Yeah.
Remax hit the scene then.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was kind of humbling, and it gave me the next step. I was the top guy in the office I was at, but then you went to Remax, and back then, it's a little different now, but back then it was the high producers. So now I was a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
So now I had to go, okay, I got to get to the top of this, fish pond or this totem pole or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah. Do you think that mindset, where did that mindset come from? Because not everyone thinks like what you just said. And I know you do it because that's who you are. But where do you think that came from? Your dad or family, having brothers, whatever. But not everyone thinks I want to be number one. Some people are comfortable just kind of conforming. So where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I think having success at a very young age.
Yeah.
Being a top producer when you're 20 some years old and you're making a couple $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
You go out to dinner with your friends. It's like, I got this. You get the bar tab. That felt good.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you play sports when you were younger?
Volleyball. League volleyball. I played at a high end.
Okay.
I'm trying to get back to it, trying to get my shoulder and my ankle repaired so I can get back to swinging my arm again. But
yeah, because I think sometimes too, when people play competitive sports, they kind of draw on that a lot, and they have that mentality to be able to do that. And something you mentioned was you were in an office and you had two people next to you that you listened to. And today, it's hard to get people to come into the office. It's something that I'm very passionate about and that I'm always encouraging my new people. Like, if you don't come in the office, how are you going to listen and learn? So I know you have a business model where you have offices, you're opening new offices. I see you doing that. Is part of that mentality to make sure you create that environment that you excelled in?
Yeah, and it's mostly smaller groups. So we have a regular group that meets in Arlington Heights on Tuesday. We have a regular group that meets in St. Charles on Wednesdays. A regular group in Libertyville.
Okay.
Libertyville or Antioch. I think they switch back and forth on Fridays.
Yeah.
And it's not people that are trying. It is some people that are trying to get into the business or slacking, but a lot of our really top producers, they're there all the time.
Yeah.
And they're the first ones in the door. And they're waiting for everybody to come in. And they're looking for new ideas.
Yeah.
And the cool part about top producers, we also have a Facebook page. We call it the HomeSmart Connect Agent Lounge. And it's just an open forum. It's just our agents. A lot of it is, hey, I have an open house that I need to do an open house here. Who wants to do one? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what's really cool specifically about that forum is you will get the new agents that go, hey, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And it's not the newer agents that are commenting. It's the seasoned veterans that are doing
it's great.
10, 15, 20, $30 million that are going, hey, try this.
But that's the culture that you've built that allows for that, because there's a lot of forums that have a lot of top agents that don't do that.
100%.
So where do you think, does that come from recruiting, or is that, obviously it comes from you being, a part of it, but is that the rest of your team as well that kind of give people that, because I noticed it at Rate is that we share a lot. But when I was at my previous company, we never did. So that takes you and everybody else giving the environment for people to do that.
Yeah. And all I do is I just ask.
Yeah.
Our St. Charles Guild took it upon herself. She just said, hey, can I start a group? Because I really want to build this office.
Yeah.
I want to help you build this office. And she goes, I think a lot of people like to come into the office.
Yeah.
She's been fantastic with it. Actually, Vicki McKinnon, who does our Arlington Heights group now, same thing. She ended up approaching me.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was approaching some of our branch managers going, hey, can you have a
yeah.
party or do something? And be honest with you, they started coming up with the ideas, and they meet on a regular basis. And
that's great, because you always need people when you're running a company the size that you are and the amount of agents that you are. That's what also creates retention. We always talk about recruiting, but retention is obviously really important.
100%.
And having that culture and people sharing and being able to do that, because what's the one thing that people say when they leave? Well, I didn't feel like I was a part of anything, or I didn't have support, or I didn't we've all heard the same, it's always the same, level of, so when you can build that and you can have it where you're not directly involved having to ask people to do it, it gives you the ability to make better business decisions, because you're not just trying to keep everyone, together.
Yep.
You're out making good business decisions that give them more resources. So is that, is that a big part of, you've seen the success, is all the other people that have taken interest in that?
Yeah. And a lot of it is, there's a lot of 100% company. We're a 100% company. We're a flat fee company. So it's $39 a month, $450 per transaction. That's the hook that kind of gets people in.
Yeah.
It's the support that keeps them there. And a lot of what happens with a lot of 100% companies, you'll notice if you look them up, there are 100, maybe 200 agents, because it's usually one person that puts it together, gets people in for the low fees, and then can't produce the services. They don't know how to scale it, how to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that I think we do really, really well is we have a broker support group. We have that Facebook lounge. We have a regular recruiter, obviously.
Yeah.
We've got people in bookkeeping that you could pick up the phone and answer the call.
Yeah.
People in our agent services department. My goal when I talk to somebody is, hey, I used to own a bunch of RE/MAX offices.
Yeah.
when you come here, I want you to feel like you're at a RE/MAX office, but you're not going to pay the RE/MAX fees.
Yeah.
You're going to pay my fees.
Yeah.
And they love it. So we get a lot of people that leave, and they all end up, like you said,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was part of something.
Yeah.
I wanted more education. And then they go to a different company and they go, oh my gosh, I'm still not getting it over there.
Yeah.
But I was paying a lot more.
But you're paying a lot more. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
we just had a couple of top producers that came back, and that's pretty common.
So where do you think, so you've spent some other time at other brokerages.
Sure.
Obviously going to a flat fee, there had to be some apprehension and some misconceptions probably more than anything, because when we're at these other companies, they almost brainwash us to think like, oh my God, you want to do that, So what was that transition like?
Yeah, a great story, and let me hop back to that in a second, but a great story that happened recently. I had an agent or a broker owner.
Yeah.
We're with a group of agents, half of his agents, a couple of my agents. It was at like an open house kind of outing.
Yeah.
And he made a comment, and I understood what he was trying to do. He goes, well, HomeSmart, they're that 100% company, and their people don't really produce a whole lot and all that kind of stuff. And that's why you're here with me, and a little smug about it.
Yeah.
And so I know my numbers. I'm very good with numbers. So I said, let me ask you this. I go, do you like this restaurant called Capitol Grill? It's one of my favorite places. I love Capitol Grill.
Yeah.
I go, do you like Capitol Grill? He goes, yeah, I love Capitol Grill. I go, great. Let me do this. $250 gift certificate. You take your top 20 people, and I'll take my top 20 people, and we'll see whose volume is higher.
Yeah.
I already knew I was going to win.
Yeah.
It's the last time I heard from that broker.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny because even the agents of mine that were at that open house at that time, every time that broker walks in the office, they're like, he just kind of like avoids us like the plague.
Yeah.
Because he's got egg on his face.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, so what was that? Did you have misconceptions about that model before getting into it and understanding it?
It's still numbers. It's still understanding the math. Yes, at first when I went out there, when it was introduced to me, I thought flat fee, $39 a month, $450 per transaction. I'm doing the math in my head. How do I make any money?
Yeah,
and it took me a while. And I'll tell you, Matt Widows, who's the founder of the franchise, they're headquartered out in Arizona, but he shared some of his insight with me.
Yeah,
and I asked him, I go, Matt, when you started this, what made you start this, and when did you start making money? More importantly. And it was a matter of doing math. So you wouldn't believe the spreadsheets that I had together. So this many agents.
But as an accountant, that's something you could digest that information.
Yeah, we went at our budget for the first year was to lose 185,000. I think we lost 176.
Yeah.
So and that's why you don't see these starting up a lot.
Yeah.
You got to have major capital in the beginning, because our break even in the beginning was 86 agents.
Wow.
Takes a while to get to 86 agents. I think it took me about a year and a half. It's a long time just to get to break even, and you're just bleeding money in the meantime. So what do? Do you either not focus on growing your business and go back to sales where your bread and butter was?
Yeah.
And I did a little bit. It took a little while to transition that to get to even. But it was really a matter of numbers. When I finally took that spreadsheet, it was a little scary when I started out. I looked at the first 3 years.
Yeah.
But then I looked at the fourth year and the fifth year and the sixth year and the seventh year. And you get up to 8 or 9, 10, when you're at now 6, 7, 800 agents.
Yeah.
800 agents times 39 a month, 3,500 transactions times 450. You start adding those numbers up.
Yeah.
And you can keep your overhead low. Our offices are fairly small. They're beautiful. When you walk in there, the clients are very impressed, but there's not a bunch of private cubicles, and those days I think are gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of our overhead, and we have a proprietary software system where they're doing all their contract management. They're doing everything online. I have agents that I haven't seen in 5 years.
Yeah.
I talk to most of them. I try to connect with as much as I can, but a lot of them I haven't seen in 5 years.
Well, I mean, you're being very modest about it, but something you've mentioned just in the short time we're talking is kind of about numbers, okay, and knowing your numbers. And I think that's probably one of the best business principles, no matter what business book you read, no matter what coach you get. One of the things they always stress is knowing your numbers.
Back to numbers.
And being an accounting background, and you're being very modest about it, but like, I'm sure I could give you stuff and you could, off the top of your head, because that's probably what you spend most of your time doing is understanding agent count and revenues and brand, and that's really important. So do you feel like that's a big opportunity for the individual agent as well? Because when you sit down with an agent, do you feel like they know their numbers? Some.
Yeah,
but,
not all.
Yeah, but not all. Because it's something that I always talk about with them. And that's why it's interesting that you brought it up. And I think that's kind of I think we've gotten so used to being dependent on social media or doing these other things, when a lot of it is you can't improve something that you don't know what and how much it takes you to do this, this, and this to get one meeting, to get one listing.
Yep.
And when you can break down the numbers on that, like when I talk to a top producer, I'm sure you're the same, they could rattle that stuff off the top of their head.
Usually.
And then you meet with some and they don't know any of them. Is that something that you ever talk about with your agents?
Yeah, I mean, and it starts with brand new licensees. When somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license, and can you give me a tip?
Yeah.
Number one tip, know your numbers.
Yeah.
If you know your numbers, you'll pass the test. If
Yeah.
you're really good with the math, because the math is really, I think, well, it may have changed now because I haven't taken it a long time, but my understanding is the test is about 60% about the numbers.
Yeah.
And you're probably right. Not that I'm modest, but I guess I don't think about it.
It's just a part of what you do.
Yeah. It's interesting because within our franchise system, there's a formula that was taught to me a long time ago, and it's called the quarter principle. And it's about breaking your P&L down. I don't want to get too technical with numbers because people that aren't into the numbers aren't going to want to listen to this stuff.
But it's important, yeah.
But it's about breaking your business into 4 quarters. The easy one is payroll.
Yeah.
Right on your P&L, you're breaking out your payroll. You know exactly what it is. What you do is you compare your payroll to your gross income.
Yeah.
The next one is facilities. For me, the third one is franchise fees. And the fourth one is profit.
Yeah.
And there's a specific portion. I have a set goal. My profit should be 30% of my gross.
Yeah.
My salaries are a little bit higher because I expect a little bit more. I think we're successful in this market because we excel, or we under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
I want to make sure all the support is there. And then I have set perimeters on where the rest of them should be. And what I do is every quarter I look at my P&L. I go, where are we? Well, the nice part about running your business that way is, let's say your facilities are supposed to be 20%. Now, all of a sudden they hit 15%, 14%.
Yeah.
In my head, I got money now to open up another office. I can increase facilities now. Let's go look at another marketplace.
I love it.
If my payroll gets out of hand, something's going on.
Yeah.
I'm either paying people too much or I'm over. That's the one area that I give a lot of grace to.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, because I do believe in running a top-notch shop, and I guess I'm driven to be.
So on that, because I think it's important, was it a difficult transition? You know, when you're in a real estate office as a producer, you know, we become, and I was this way too. It's like, oh, I wouldn't do this. You know, why do they do this? I don't have this support. And then all of a sudden now you're on the other side of it.
Yep.
Do you build your business based off of your experiences of the things that you didn't have, and how much did you think about that? Because again, when you're a realtor, you know, you're like, oh, I wish I would have had this. I wish I would have had that. And then you go to HomeSmart and you build this amazing company. How much of what your experience was as a realtor is what you built on?
I don't know that it's so much my experience as a realtor as much as it is feedback from. I really focus on our top producing people.
Okay.
I have 2 big meetings a year. One is our top 5% in the company. One's our top 10% in the company.
Yeah.
And I really focus. Those are the people that I'm always looking to. Or when they send a comment, we do a comment card after every closing, so an agent has an opportunity to give us some feedback. You know, those are the ones that I'm really focusing on because they're stellar focused.
And that's great because a lot of companies manage from the bottom up, and you're doing a top-down approach, which for feedback is really important, because if they're more successful, it helps the people that are, you know, struggling to see, hey, look what they're doing, and this is what I need to do, and this is the path.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I listen to the ones that aren't doing a whole lot of production as well. I look at all feedback.
Yeah.
But you can tell there's definitely a pattern. If we're slacking a little bit in our agent services department, they're not picking up the phone quick enough or something like that, I'm hearing about it.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to, you know, correct as you apply.
So what let's go back a little bit. So you got in the business. What company were you with when you started?
Merrill Lynch Realty.
Okay.
Mount Prospect.
Okay, and how long were you there?
About 2 years, a little over 2 years.
And then where did you go to Remax from there? Or?
It's funny, Remax hit the scene. I got in the business in '86. Remax hit the scene here in Chicago in about '88.
Okay.
So I remember when it came into town, like, balloon? What the hell does that have to do with real estate? And and to be honest, I was going to go there. They were heavily recruiting me because I was one of the top guy in that office, or one of the top guys in that office. And I was scared.
Yeah.
I was just, you know, you go from back then, and Remax is even more. A lot of times there are, you know, commission splits and all that kind of stuff. But back then it was, you know, $1,800, $2,000 a month, and I'm writing a check for.
Yeah.
And I'm a math guy still, so I can understand how I budget and how it worked, but it was scary.
Yeah.
You know, what happens if I have a bad 3-4 months? I still owe them. So I went to, back then it was just Stark Realty.
Okay.
Now it's Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Stark.
Yeah.
Worked in their office probably a year and a half, maybe 2.
Okay.
Again, became one of the top producers over there, and then said, "Yeah, I just got to make the jump."
Yeah.
Remax had now established itself a little bit. They were there a couple of years. Back in the day, that's where all the top producers were going.
Yeah.
That was the shiny new penny.
Yeah.
So I finally made the jump.
So, and how long were you with Remax then?
19. Oh my gosh. I was there 9 years. Well, I was there as an agent and as a managing broker. About 4 years in, I really decided I wanted to get into managing. I wanted to be able to, again, going back to that same philosophy we do now as one of the top producers. So people would come to me, and they were always amazed that I would give them the time. Because that's just who I am. My dad, I used to have a saying: you treat the janitor the same way that you treat the guy that owns the building.
Yeah.
So when somebody come in, they're struggling, even if they're not doing a lot of business, I'm there. I'm going to give the time and help. So I wanted to incorporate that. I enjoyed that. So I wanted to get in management. I managed that Remax office for, I think, 5 years. And then I started buying them. I found out one was available. It was a property in Palatine. It was suffering. It was funny because the guy wanted to sell the building too.
Yeah.
And he was hurting he only had like 12 agents.
Yeah.
But he was hurting so bad, the ceiling leaked on the second floor, but his office was on the first floor and the second floor was vacant, and it never leaked down to the first floor, so he never fixed it.
Wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So we took that, and myself and I had a business partner at the time, we built that into one of the largest offices in the area, one of the largest Remax offices. About every 3 years, we would end up either buying or opening up another one.
Okay.
And after a while, we had 230 Remax agents. At the time, that was again the big shiny penny.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say
exactly.
it today, but that was the big shiny penny.
Well, what do you think drew you to management because you were a top producer? You didn't have to manage.
No, I think I enjoyed it, and it actually gave me a sense of accountability too. And I instilled that, right? I share that with a lot of our branch managers now. There's not a lot of money in being a branch manager for that kind of company.
Tell me about it.
For most companies.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to get rich doing it. You do it because you love it.
Yeah.
I did it because it got me out of bed.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy as a realtor to, I don't know, I don't have an appointment till 2. I'll sleep in till 10.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go out for a long lunch. Maybe I'll go have a couple beers. I'll cut off early with the buddies. It's really easy to do that without having some kind of discipline. And that gave me the discipline.
Yeah.
Becoming you had to be, you're the guy they were counting on to open up the doors.
Now you got all these people that are depending on you, and it changes the narrative a lot. Yeah.
And surprisingly, my business went up.
Yeah.
It didn't go down. It went up, and it was putting in a lot more extra time, but it gave me more of a discipline.
Okay, so you own these franchises. Any takeaway from that process as you're growing? Then obviously market changes, recruiting, like that was a wild time. Well, 90s, 2000s. So what was that like managing all that?
It was fun. When we were growing it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I would personally sit in all the recruiting meetings because I get along with people.
Yeah.
They're all top producing people that are coming there. It was fun. And then the horror story starts.
Yeah.
We go through 07.
Yep.
Before that, I had a business partner that we were 50-50 partners when we started it. We went into it with the intention. He was very good at certain things. I was very good at certain things. We had our set duties. And after a while, we weren't getting along.
Yeah.
It was just you're butting heads every day. I'll never forget. I finally came home, came to the conclusion. I finally negotiated to buy him out.
Yeah.
In about mid 07. That strings a chord with a lot of people that went through everything. I'm like, it's all mine.
Yeah.
And then 08 hit.
Yeah.
And 09 hit. And what a lot of people don't know is prior to that, what I started doing is investing in sizable office buildings.
Yeah.
I'd have 20, 30, 40,000 square foot office buildings. And I bought my partner out of all those as well. So, everything's mine. It's all cool.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know is after the residential real estate crash in 08, 09, 2010, the commercial market really crashed.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I had my managing broker at one of our offices call me, and she goes, is the second floor, they had like a retreat or something? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
She goes, usually we're fighting for parking.
Yeah.
Nobody's been in this parking lot for 2 weeks other than our agents.
Wow.
I'm like, well, that's weird. Something's going on. I go there, and it's empty.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of the end. So,
yeah.
And that's when, my whole empire started crushing. I'm fighting like hell. I'm working 18-hour days to try and keep the Remax afloat. I'm working my tail off to keep the properties afloat. and everything finally imploded. And it was funny. I was sitting on the board of directors at the time with Main Street Association. I remember going in and resigning. And I said, I'm out of real estate. I'm never going back.
Yeah.
Opened up an LED lighting company.
Wow.
I had a friend of mine that had an LED lighting company in Florida.
Yeah.
He was successful. I thought, this will be easy. It should be good.
Yeah.
About 18 months into it, I remember shaking my head going, what the hell did I just do?
Yeah.
Real estate's all I know. It's what I love. And funny story, I had a gal, and her name is Ann. She works in Arizona still. She was one of my agents when she was here in Chicago. She moved to Arizona, started working for HomeSmart, called me back, said, hey, Bill, I respect you. I'm coming back to Chicago. I miss my family.
Yeah.
You're the only broker I'll work for, so what do I got to do? I go, well, I don't own anything. So, and I'll never forget, she goes, isn't there like I went through and I said, here are some of the good brokers in town.
Yeah.
Here are the people that I think are doing it right, and here are the people you maybe want to steer away from. And I'll never forget, she said, don't you have like a HomeSmart? And this is back, 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And back then it's what everybody says. What the hell is HomeSmart?
Yeah.
No idea what it. Now we're in the top
Household
10
name,
companies
yeah.
in Chicagoland. Now we're up there. But back then nobody knew who we were. So it was a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I went out to Arizona and I met Matt Widows and I saw the back office systems and I saw their support and the way that they run their company and then ran the numbers. And funny, I was at the time, I was fairly broke. I didn't have a whole lot of money.
So I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I just think there's a lot of people that have things that happen in their life that never recover, okay? And it says a lot about you personally, okay, to be able to go through something like that because there are a lot of people ego-wise that wouldn't even talk about it, okay? You just like explained something that was probably like, a very defining moment, in your life.
It was hell.
Okay. And you have a family, you're married, you have all these things that are going on.
Amazing support there.
And exactly. I want to talk about that a little bit, but so you go through this, okay? Not everybody is going to start another company and then come back and have the success that you did. And you just talked about it like it was like you opened up like, a lemonade stand. Like I give you a ton of credit because there's a lot of people that go through things in life that are a tenth of that, that never recover. Yeah. Or they say, why me? Or they say whatever. Now, I'm sure there's 100 reasons why, your family and all that stuff. But like, what did that look like internally for you to get the confidence to be able to not only step back and open up another franchise and go start it all over again, but I'm sure going through and getting rid of your portfolio and doing all these things, there's every night you're going home with no end in sight and could never even imagine you'd be sitting here talking about, 800 some agents. So what was that like to you and what kept you going?
Yeah. Well, you touched about a big part of it was my wife,
yeah.
Having confidence in me, even when I didn't have confidence in me.
Yeah.
And she'd try to encourage me and I would brush it off.
Yeah.
Make her feel like I'm listening, but really wasn't listening.
Yeah.
But she was there for me. She stuck by me, which was a very, very, I drove Uber.
Yeah.
I know what a link card is.
Yeah.
That's a food stamp card if you don't know what it is. We lost our house. You lose everything.
Yeah.
And like I said, I found the concept and I remember I went out there. I kind of went out there to Arizona to look at HomeSmart just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Just, okay, what is this all about? Never heard of this 100% company concept. Don't know what it is. Be honest with you, I went out there thinking, okay, maybe somebody will open one and I'll get back into real estate that way.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it, I kind of fell in love with it, but I didn't have enough money to do it.
Yeah.
I started running the numbers and I'm like, wait a minute, the first 3 years, I'm going to lose $250,000. I need $250,000 to do this. I don't have that money.
Yeah.
So what I did is I actually sold 49% of the company, or I sold 49% of a concept back then. It wasn't even, it was nothing.
Yeah.
49% of a concept to raise money.
Yeah.
And I raised $250,000.
Wow.
And I still have 6 of those people. I own 67% of my company.
Okay.
I have 6 people that own 33%.
Okay.
They don't have control. They're kind of an advisory council for me.
Yeah.
I respect every one of them. When I want to make a major decision, I run it by them. They're kind of my secondary conscience.
Yeah.
Hey, are you thinking about? Are you looking at this? Are you doing this properly? It was hard. It's funny. I'll never forget. My brother-in-law was the last investor, and I'll never forget. We're in. He had some fairly decent wealth. He knew what I had gone through. he wanted to help somehow. And I'll never forget one day he just said, he made a sizable buy-in.
Yeah.
He didn't know me that well back then.
Yeah.
He just wanted to help and had the ability. That was the day that I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
In a country club pool.
Yeah.
He goes, here's what I'm going to give you. Here's what I want.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, I'll do that deal. And then it took off. The first year, from working so hard those prior 4 years to get out of what I call financial hell. I used to have a statement. I've been through financial hell and I'm never going back.
Yeah.
That was my focus. And then the Winston Churchill, never give up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a neat story about that in a minute if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Then we ran it. I was fine working 18 hours a day. My wife supported. Hey, do whatever you can. If you think you can get us back on top again, God bless you. Let's go.
Yeah.
God is good. We're Christian people. We treat people like Christians. We treat people fairly. But I had the drive already, and somehow God put something in me to recreate and work my tail off. And I think once I got to about 50 agents, then I realized, hey, you know what? My numbers are working. The system.
You had to have a sense of almost like a no fear attitude.
Oh, it was scary. It was scary as hell. But
you were scared, but you had to have something else that just made you push forward. Because again, most people don't do anything when they're fearful.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's something very admirable and something that a lot of people can learn from. And I hope, when your agents and people want to come to your office, they hear the story, because for me, I didn't know this about you. Listen, I've been through, some financial issues when I was younger, nothing like that. And I just remember the despair and why me. And again, I don't know what drew me to where I am today or how I got here.
Yeah.
But there's always something. I always saw my dad working really hard and never complaining. And I think there's people with your story that so many people can learn from, that I just don't think people realize, they take something that happens to them and then that's it. That's their story.
Yep.
Where you've made your own story, and maybe you going through that, in a lot of ways, maybe made the end story even better because you appreciate it more. You said, I'm never going back to that.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when people get to that level and then they lose it and they get it back, it's a totally different experience, and I show you a ton of courage just because I think that's just an amazing way to think about and what you accomplished is just awesome.
Yeah, I think a big part of that came from my dad too. My dad has since passed, but and I didn't get along with my dad when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I recognize why I didn't. When he passed and I had to sell his business, help my brother sell his business. Those last couple of years of his life, we became very, very close, and I began to understand him.
Yeah.
And I realized the reason I didn't like him is he was working all day, and then he'd come home. He had a plastic fabricating and engraving shop in the city.
Yeah.
But he would come home and he'd have other machines downstairs, and then he'd be working downstairs. So I never really. We had the time.
Yeah.
And now I look back at a lot of the things that he used to talk to me about or tell me or correct me or scold me about. There was a purpose to that. So I think I really draw that drive and that entrepreneurial spirit from him. The other thing, the competitive spirit. And I always like to tell people I'm not competitive, but everybody looks at me like, what are you talking about? You're like the most competitive guy I know. Comes from having a bunch of brothers and sisters.
I was going to say having a brother,
especially bigger brothers. I mean, you got to figure out a way to be tough. You want to get to the top of the pile. Either that or you're going to get beaten down. So.
Yeah. So you talked about your wife. It's interesting. One of the things I always talk about when a loan officer comes to me and they say, hey, I want to get in the mortgage business. They're always shocked at the first question that I ask, because the first question I ask is, what's your support like at home? Yeah. Because, I wouldn't be here without, a lot of patience, a lot of understanding. When I got in the business, I had basically nothing, and here I'm taking a fully commissioned job, so I think it's something that I don't want to say overlook, but I don't think some people understand that it truly is a team, even though our spouses don't do the day-to-day work. They're not doing the loans. They have to deal with everything else. When I'm taking a phone call or an agent calls you and needs help or whatever, we have a good quality of life. Okay. but there's also, and your wife, deserves a lifetime achievement award for for going through everything. So it's really important. So I always talk about it on here because I just don't think people realize that that's a big part of what. Because if you have a spouse that doesn't understand it, imagine what that would have been like going through that without that. It would have been a totally different outcome.
And going home every day to somebody that like it wasn't scary to go home.
Yeah,
You went home and you got somebody else there that just. They believe in you.
Yeah.
I know you can do it. All right, how are we going to figure this out? What are you going to do next? I think she knew my entrepreneurial spirit. She had seen what I did in the past.
Yeah.
So she just knew I think she knew it was just a matter of time. I just had to figure it out in my head.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. And sometimes that's all we need is just, not the extra pressure of, going home. But I always say my wife also is, she's, also, she always says like, you don't manage me. So, always like my sounding board or, will give me the honest truth when I need it, but also very supportive when I need it. And I think sometimes that's the best, advice that we can get is sometimes just be told, hey, you're acting like an idiot. Just, this is what you need to do. And I think that makes a big difference in our business for both of us. Yeah.
She also helped. When we first started this, she went back to work. She went to Starbucks.
Yeah.
She was I'm going to do whatever I can. We need health insurance for the kids. We need this, that. And, she was willing to pitch in with whatever we had.
So how many
to do.
kids do you have?
Three girls.
Okay, 3 girls. Oh, so you got
a lot of estrogen.
I was going to say you got your hands full. Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So and you grew up with how many brothers?
Well, I've got 3 sisters and 2 brothers. There were 6 of us, and then my dad remarried, and then there's a stepbrother and 2 stepsisters.
Okay,
so
I
still consider them my brothers and sisters. So I tell people I've got 8 brothers and sisters.
That's great. That's great. So you go through the 2008 housing crisis. We get through the other side. Obviously, totally life changing for you. You have these 100 agents that you finally get to. So what did the growth like? Did you ever envision it growing to the level that it is now? Was that always kind of in the back of your mind?
Oh yeah.
Was there a moment that you got to that you were like, this is going to be the difference?
No, I mean, there was a moment, there was one year, and it just happened a couple of years ago, and it's kind of phenomenon within the HomeSmart system. So I remember there were a lot of other HomeSmart broker owners that, me coming in, I was kind of intimidated by them.
Yeah.
They got 5, 6, 7, 800,000 agents. Like,
yeah.
How do I have a conversation with these guys? Now they're like my best buds.
Yeah. I was asking like the turning point when when you were getting to kind of growing the agents where you realized like, hey, this is just the beginning and I can really make this into something special.
Yeah. And it's really plateaus.
Yeah.
It's really that 100 agent mark.
Yep.
All right. I remember Matt Widows, the founder, when I first went out there to meet with him, he took me out to lunch or whatever. And on the way back from lunch, he goes, what's going to happen? I was a little nervous about it.
Yeah.
I said, hey, Matt, how'd you start this? And when did you really start making money? I've mapped it out. I know when I'm going to start making money. I just wanted some reassurance. And he goes, I'm going to tell you one thing. When you hit about 100 agents, people are going to realize, hey, they're here for real. They're not going anywhere. And you're going to get people that are going to call you out of the blue and go, I want to join you. And they're going to walk in the door and say, you want to join you? And I looked at him. I go, Matt, you're full of crap. And he just laughed.
Yeah.
He goes, okay. He just kind of brushed it off like that. And I'll never forget the day we hit 100. I had hired a recruiter by then. She was in one conference room recruiting somebody. I was in another conference room recruiting somebody. My secretary walks in and go, hey, can you take a call? Somebody wants to join us. I'm like, oh, that's odd. And I know this is like number 100 across the table.
Yeah.
And somebody actually walked in the door. I called Matt that day. I go, did you set that up? Was that real? Did that really happen? But, that 100 plateau, once you got to the 100, then I started looking, okay, the next focus is it was incremental. There were smaller incremental goals. Okay, let's get to 150. But the big power goal was get to 250.
Yeah.
You get to 250, then you get to 500. Right now the goal is to get to 1,000. We put on 31 agents last month.
Yeah.
So we're going to get there.
I was going to say you're going to get there pretty quick.
Our ultimate goal right now, the main target right now is 1,200 by the end of 2026.
I love it. Okay.
But this has been mapped out since the day I started asking for money, trying to sell 49% of the thing. That's what I would present. I had a whole prospectus.
And how many years from your first agent till today?
10 and a half.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, not quite 11 years.
Yeah, so that's I mean, you figure it's almost 100 agents a year. I mean, that's there's
and it's funny because it's morphed. Like even from a staffing standpoint. So when you first start, I first started. I had 2 agents. 2 people joined me right away. I'm the guy that was answering the phone. I'm cutting the checks. I'm doing everything. I'm ordering supplies. I'm paying the bills. And then, ultimately you start putting together, you start trying to figure out a plan. Okay, when do I put on an agent services person or a front desk person? When do I put on a bookkeeper? And you kind of go, the team kind of morphs, and our team has morphed exceptionally. Right now we're at a point where I'm kind of the rainmaker.
Yeah.
I'm not in the office every day.
Yeah.
I'm either at one of our offices or I work from my home office.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to create stuff. We finally hired a head of operations. We have a head of finances. We have a head of agent services. We have a head of recruiting. So I have all the departments set up so that they're running and they're reporting to me.
Yeah.
It goes back to a concept. I don't know if you've ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And the E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Those are my two favorite books.
What about Traction? You ever read the book Traction?
I haven't. I'd like to.
Yeah. It's excellent.
I'll have to write that
Yeah.
down.
I have a copy for you. I'll give it for you before you leave. We just had, so Traction, one of the things that they say is delegate to elevate. Okay. You'll love the book. It's phenomenal. We just had a business coach come in that they have coaches that go out and teach the system. It's a whole system. Anybody who loves the E-Myth is going to love Traction. There's a lot of, you'll love it.
E-Myth's good, but it's hard to read. So
yes. No, this is much easier to read, but and it runs off a system called EOS, which is an Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's a whole outline. Okay. And it's basically running your business like a business. Okay. Even if you're just a realtor, a mortgage lender, I use it. But we had a coach come in. It'd be a great thing to do for your team. I have a guy that I'm actually doing a podcast with him tomorrow. But I can introduce you. His name's MZ. He's like he goes in and he coaches teams and people on this process. He breaks down like your core values and all this stuff and getting people to buy into your vision and everything. And he just helps you kind of visualize it a little bit. And if you're one person or a 100-person company or 1,000-person company, he coaches all of them.
Isn't it cool? Because that concept,
it
works whether you're one guy selling real estate or you're 850 agents managing a company. That same concept of working on your business, not in your business, or the time you need to work on your business.
Well, it made me think of it because you were talking about how you put all these people in place to kind of delegate those tasks to get them to run the systems that you run, and that helps you scale. And you can't scale if you don't have a system or a process, a way of doing things. And you would never have 900 agents if you didn't have a system and a process that is scalable. A lot of us have, if you talk to a lender or a realtor and you say, how do you do things? Well, I do that, but it's not documented. It's not, they just do it because they've done it all along. But that's not scalable. Because you can't have, and then when they hire someone, what do they say is, oh, well, they just didn't work out because they didn't know how to do it. It's because you didn't have a system. You didn't delegate it correctly. So it talks a lot about delegating and how to delegate, which sounds like a basic thing, but I struggled at it for my first 15 years of my career. And now knowing better how to do it and document all this stuff. So I'll share the book with you. I think it's great. I know we've been talking for a while, but one of the things I did want to kind of get your take on is obviously, we're kind of in this, weird time in the industry. We had last year, it was dominated by the whole commission lawsuit, and I was following you a ton on that, and we talked briefly about it a couple times, but you had all that news, okay? And it was going to be doom and gloom. Ended up, as we sit today, not much has changed. Would you agree that as far as, just paperwork and things like that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I remember when, gosh, how long ago was this? It's probably 2005 when the MLS went public.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm building this company, not this company, but my prior company. And all of a sudden the MLS is going to go public. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to be like travel agents. We're out of business. The world's going to fall. And it didn't. And, we figured out a way to work around it. And that's the way I preached it even to my agents. I go, guys, this is going to change. You have to have a buyer agent signature. And at first, even we all know, last quarter, everybody's like, really? You're very reluctant. Now it's like, oh, here, you got to sign this.
Exactly.
And it's just a matter of we looked at that new system or the new rules that with the NAR settlement, and they figured it out, especially the high producers. The good producing people figured it out. The people that are struggling with it still are the ones that are doing 1 and 2 transactions a year, and they're always going to struggle with it.
But I think one thing, again, you're always very modest, which I love, but I think there's leaders who are there and react to stuff. I felt like just watching you from afar, you were very, you showed a lot of leadership during that time. And I saw you in the agent lounge stuff because I do follow that. You guys have me on there. And I know you were doing stuff, and I know you had your team doing stuff. You were very proactive where, when it first happened, there was a lot of companies that weren't doing that. And the main reason that they weren't doing that is because they were worried about the liability. If they said something and someone did something, they were worried. And I felt like you did a really good job of kind of being out there, showing leadership, giving people a voice
Thank you.
to follow. And I think that's important in a lot of what, and honestly, I feel like that's what a lot of realtors are craving right now is someone to kind of lead them through the fire.
Yeah, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I was worried about lawsuits and saying the wrong thing. And that's why I did the webinar and didn't let anybody else do it. I know where I can draw the line, or I think I know where I can draw the line.
Yeah.
And if I screw up, all right, I'll take the heat for it. That was a tough time.
Yeah.
It's just about communicating. I'm glad we went through that whole MLS change years ago.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I freaked out. I remember going to my business partner going, "We're dead, dude.
Yeah.
We're gonna be closed in like 2 years."
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's not happening. And I don't think it's going to happen.
So now we're in this, so we have, and I've been talking a ton on this and the main reason why I wanted to have you here today is really to kind of get your take on this. Because I think as someone who's been through the experience that you have and kind of your background, I think your voice matters a lot more than most. And it's important to have perspective, not only for what your background, but also as someone who leads the amount of agents that you do. It's important, okay? And you have this landscape now where you have all these different business models.
Mm-hmm.
You have Compass, you have all these different business models making decisions that are based off of business in the future or business models. And one of the things that I always talk about is the focus on the consumer. Mm-hmm. And not many of it, you figure the commission lawsuit, everything that happened, it was in a way to protect the consumer. At least that's what they tell us. But I don't know if that's the case because the consumer didn't really get any of the money. But let's just say if that's the case, okay? But, they had all that confusion with that. Now you have consumers wondering when they go to Zillow or they go to Redfin, am I seeing all the listings available? So what's your take on where the business is today,
Yeah.
and how you feel like this is going to play out if because it just seems like everyone's making business decisions based off of survival, I'm guessing, or relevancy, or, we don't want to get the listings over here, so we're going to put it over here.
Right.
And does that ultimately help the realtor community in the long run?
Yeah. I had a feeling we were this topic was going to come up.
Yeah.
And it's just like some of the other crises, you say, so to speak, that we've gone through. And what we're talking about is, the clear cooperation rules. Zillow, if you put a listing in the regular MLS, and a lot of agents aren't even worried about it because they're just starting to implement it now.
Yeah.
So agents thought it was implemented a while ago, and they're like, well, they're not doing it. I put it in a private listing, and now it's going in the regular MLS, and it's showing up on Zillow.
Yeah.
That's not always going to be the case. So, what they're doing, I don't, listen, I'm not a big fan of Zillow.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Realtor.com.
Yeah.
I think we made a huge mistake as an industry selling out something that we had control over. But it's something that's very valuable to a lot of agents, a lot of high producers, or they're spending a lot of money on Zillow, a lot of money on Realtor.com. But Zillow finally took a stance and said, hey, if you don't put it out to everybody in the first 24 hours, we're going to ban you from our platform.
Yeah.
And of course, now there's a big battle, Compass, and I guess Steve Beard just came in and had an opinion upon it. And what they're trying to do, or their opinions on it, Steve Beard came out and said, wait a second, how is this possibly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but my interpretation of what he said was, how is this possibly good for a consumer?
Yeah.
I get that it's good for these big companies. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we're one of the top 10 companies in Chicago now. It's good for us. Yeah. All right, let's put the policy in place that, hey, if we can keep it on a private network and we don't have to share it with anybody. We only share it with our group internally. Yeah. That's good for my company. I don't think it's good for the industry.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good for the consumer. And, the majority of NAR are not working for these big top 10 companies who it's beneficial for. It's grossly beneficial for the big guys, because now they're going to take their inventory and just, it's kind of like, I was thinking about this way on the way over here. Let's say I was selling, I'm selling gold bullion.
Yeah.
I'm selling gold bars, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a gold bar broker, and you want me to sell your gold bar for you. And I'm going to go to you and say, listen, Eric, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell this bar. We're going to get you the best possible price.
Yeah.
I'm only going to give it to these people that I usually sell to, this group of like 50 people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put it on the open market because this is the best thing for you. Are you insane?
Yeah.
The best thing for you is to put it out to everybody and see who's going to come up with the highest dollar.
Yeah.
So I have to think, and I pray, because with the way the real estate leadership industry, leadership in this industry, has gone. I've shaken my head at a lot of the decisions they make, but you have to think somebody is going to say, "Hey, wait a second, guys, this is not a good thing."
Well, that's why it's kind of my question was too. Is like, obviously, the consumer opinion of the industry last year was not great, and we saw a lot of that. And you would think the best path forward is to improve that and to strengthen that.
And the consumers don't even know about this.
Exactly. And I just feel like it creates a narrative that they're going to be able to, even though it may not be that, and Compass and everyone will say it's something different, I think the narrative is going to be told by the media and everyone else, and we know that that's never going to be good. Yeah. And that's going to carry one problem. The one thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't even know if this is possible because I don't know the mechanisms behind it, but if you had a national MLS, because I've heard this thrown out there, a couple times, and I don't know what that looks like because there's all these boards and, they all make money. And
Emirates been working on it for years.
Okay, but if you had a national MLS and you guys could house those, listings and provide it, what would Zillow need to purchase, or Redfin for that matter? Like, I feel like the opportunity is in the business model, not so much on where they are. And if basically if you were to give everybody everything, and have access to it, all in one place, you could share whatever. Zillow could make the decision to do, but the reason why they have the power that they do right now is because they, Redfin gets 50 million viewers a month. That's the power.
Yep.
And, they were charging money to realtors forever, and now they're, so I just think the national MLS, I would think, to have somewhere where the consumer could go, is the opportunity.
And if you did it right, if you did it, built a better system. I think Homes.com is trying to do exactly that.
Yeah.
They're trying to build a more realtor-centric too. So if it's, they say you're listing your lead.
Yeah.
So if it goes into Homes.com and it's your listing, somebody calls on that, somebody's not buying. I don't know how they're making money, to be honest with you. I really don't, but I don't care.
Isn't the risk, though, that these companies end up just getting bought, though? Because,
probably.
I mean, a lot of them are built with the expectation to get purchased.
Yeah.
So, I just feel like there's an opportunity where, obviously, Realtor.com would have been it, but, it was sold. And I don't know the financials behind that or what
I don't either. That's noise to me.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you, if the information just was available, that it wouldn't be so valuable to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds easy to me, but I just wonder if that's a solution.
Well, and I thought, even when the MLS was talking about going public back in the day, I thought that was my concept of it. Hey, great, they're going to create a platform. Anybody can access all the information. Well, I didn't say it was great. I said it was scary for me, at the time, but that's really what we need right now.
Yeah.
Zillow right now is still getting the information because they're a real estate company. They're a brokerage.
Yeah.
Why people invest and buy Zillow, I get why they do it.
I know.
People need that platform, but they're direct competition to everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's funny, in our agent lounge, every once in a while, I'll throw something out about Zillow. Does it good or bad? I throw some. I think I threw something out about this new process.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, they weren't even talking about the PLN and whether it was going to go on Zillow or not, whether, however you had the thing listed. All they were talking about was how much they hate Zillow and would never, participate in it. But, right now they're a real estate broker. Their IDX feed is no different than mine. So when you go onto HomeSmart.com, you see all the listings in the MLS because of my IDX feed.
Yeah.
You go into ZenList, you see some of the private listings, and
Oh,
they also made a change with ZenList. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Yeah.
So ZenList used to be, and Ad Properties was really.
I love ZenList, by the way.
It's the concept is great.
Yeah.
Well, Ad Properties used to actually sell it as a advantage to use Ad Properties.
Yeah.
They kind of made it sound like they were the exclusive ZenList vendor or customer. They're not. Anybody can have it. Any realtor can have it. But what they originally did was they allowed, or MRED allowed the brokerage, brokerage, to make a decision whether my private listing network leads are going to go onto ZenList.
Yeah.
there were a lot of big brokers, and I don't remember who. I think it was Steve Baird. I think it was Andy Stark. A lot of the guys said, you know what? No, we're not going to put it on there. Not if somebody else is getting an advantage for it, and we're not, because some of us are using Zenlist, some of us are not. They're using it as a company.
Yeah.
Without telling anybody, they changed the policy to where now they allow the individual agent to make a decision whether their listings go on the PLN. Which I'm fine with. I explained that to my agents. I think what I was upset with was I wasn't consulted with. I wasn't, I had no vote. It just, and I found out after the fact because I started seeing some of the stuff.
It's a bad way of doing it.
I had my agents calling me going, hey, wait a second. I thought we blocked all this, and why is it on their listing? Yeah.
Let me give you something else to think about. So, and I've been talking a ton about this with realtors. So, also in this year, amongst everything else, you had Rocket purchase Redfin.
Yep.
Okay. So what most people don't realize, and we've already started to see this, is that if you look at their investor, they did a call, earnings call or whatever it was, and they kind of went through and they laid out their blueprint for how they what that business model is going to look like. So Redfin has 50 million viewers a month. Okay. Rocket services 1 out of every 7 mortgages in the United States. So just think about that.
Yep.
And then their recapture rate right now is around 77%. So 77% of people who get a mortgage through Rocket, when they purchase another home, they go back to Rocket. I know it's a massive number. In the industry, there's nothing like it, but because they're trying to own the funnel. Okay. So whereas, and I think this is, I'll be interested to see, even maybe by, the end of this year, what happens with Zillow, because I think it's on the table for them to either make an acquisition or get acquired, because everyone's trying to own the funnel. Okay. Because if you own 1 out of every 7 mortgages, okay, and you got a 77% capture rate and you're getting 50 million views on your website,
big number,
every single month, you're owning the funnel. Okay. Now, nobody can predict consumer behavior, and nobody knows what that could change. And some other new homes.com could make a huge Zenlist, you just never know. Okay.
Yeah.
Lower is another mortgage company that made an acquisition in another home search tool. So it's starting to companies are starting to kind of show their hands a little bit and make these acquisitions. But the question becomes, does your business model work today, if you're a realtor or a lender, in a world where they own the funnel and the relationship? It's going to change. Like, that's going to change.
Yeah, I think that's why I think we're going to have to see some regulation somewhere. I mean, it's turning into where there's certain entities that are.
But it goes back to Buffini. If you own the relationship, it doesn't need to be a lead.
True.
And I think that is the key. If there's anything, if a new realtor, a new lender gets in the business, is, when you got in the business, what they taught you then is actually what they should be teaching, nonstop today. Not all these sales courses and you need to get these lead company and you need to it's relationship, because if you own the relationship,
100%,
it never becomes a lead.
Yep.
And that is 1 in 8 people in your database are going to sell their home in the next 1 to 3 years. That's a stat that's held true for years.
It hasn't changed.
It's never going to change. And yet, what's the recapture rate of, realtors and lenders? It's horrible. It's not 77%. I can tell you what Rocket is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opportunity is finding ways to stay in front of your database. And it's not sending them just listed or just sold, or me sending them interest rates and products. It's relationship. It's building that relationship. And I think
100%.
To me, I think is the biggest opportunity. Would you agree? Kind of that's the opportunity moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. That's the one thing that's been constant through my entire career.
Yeah.
The one thing, it's all my friends. They know you, they like you, they trust you. They don't care about your skill. Not that they don't care about your skill level, but they really have no clue how well you can perform. But they like you.
Yeah.
They want to feel good about this, and they want somebody kind of coaching them through it.
Yeah.
So
I always say, if we focus right now, there's so much focus on how to buy a home. You do this, and these are the 5 steps, and we have to focus more on the why to buy a home or to sell a home. Meaning, why do I need to buy now and not wait? Why are home prices still moving higher? Why, if you focus your social media and everything on the why, I think that's what people are struggling with, at least that I see. And so much of what we do today is about, this is, how to do it. When, quite honestly, there's 100 YouTube videos and so much content out there on how to do it.
Google it.
Exactly. I mean, our world has changed a lot. Yeah. I was just joking. My wife had me do something at the house, and the first thing I did went to YouTube and I got a video to learn how to do it. I'm like, this is why I need to continue to build my YouTube page, because I'm a living proof of why this is how I do things.
I had one of my IT guys. He's not with us anymore, but I had one of my IT guys one time. He fixed something for me. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you are just so smart. You're so good with this. He goes,
Yeah.
Bill, I'm not any smarter than you. In fact, you're probably smarter than me. I'm just faster with Google than you are.
Yeah. So a couple things real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. But do you see AI playing any role in your office? Anything?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. I heard I saw scrolling through Instagram or YouTube or whatever it was. Somebody came on and they said, "Hey, you know, real estate agents within 5 years, 70% of you guys are going to be out of the business because of AI."
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to get my head around that yet.
So let me give you a couple things that I've seen agents doing that will kind of blow your mind.
Yeah.
So this is my person, and I'm deep into it. I'm deep into it at rate. I'm on some stuff, and I'll just tell you, like, it's had me scared in the beginning, but I would say I'm probably more like excited about the future than I've been in a long time. But there's a couple caveats to that. I think the top 1% can 4-6 times their business, and I think everyone else should be concerned. And I mean that like in the nicest possible way, because there's going to be people that use it that are going to, completely transform their business. Okay. So I'll just tell you how we use it to give you an idea.
Curious,
yeah. So we have some things where right now we have a company. So we purchased a company. So an application comes in, someone uploads a paycheck stub, W-2s, bank statements, and tax returns. Our system within seconds will review that, approve it with an underwriter that no longer needs to see an actual underwriter in seconds.
Right.
Okay. So imagine speed. Okay. Everyone talks about speed, but I think it's more of a customer experience. You sitting at home in your pajamas, you upload all your stuff, you get in the morning, and you have a commitment letter. Like, that's amazing. Doesn't replace me, because they still need the human connection to be able to talk, go through. And if anything, people are almost craving more human connection now. There's a lot of studies on that.
I agree.
But Freddie Mac actually uses our tool to audit their files. So it never needs to be approved again through an underwriter.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's one way. Okay, we have other tools that we do where you can create these AI chatbots to text and respond and communicate.
Yeah.
They now have AI agents that will call.
Yep.
So if you have 1,000 people in your database, they'll call. You could do it for recruiting. Now, there's some really bad ones out there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I just got a really bad one yesterday.
No, the good ones, though, like I've listened to 20, 30 phone calls, and I told the story, but, a dog barked in the background, and the person's like, "Oh, do you have a dog? What kind of dog do you have?"
Yep.
And I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like, so stuff like that, I think when you get that, but this is the way you think about it. If all it's doing is making appointments for you, okay, they don't get tired, you'd have to hire 20 people to sit in an office and dial, and they all have, a different tone. They're getting frustrated. They're getting hung up on, and you're just constantly trying to get people because they don't like the job.
And you get to turn and burn. Yep.
This is one AI agent can do that all with, you set the hours and they had the same tone every time. So I think there's some massive opportunities for prospecting, recruiting, AI specific stuff. The other thing is I've seen even realtors today where they will get 8 contracts in on an offer. They'll upload them all into AI and they'll say, "Hey, can you review these contracts? Give me all the relevant details and give me a spreadsheet."
Yeah.
And it'll outline all the differences of each one.
Yeah.
And then now, and it'll go through closing dates and put it all in a spreadsheet. And then they can sit across from their seller. So I've seen it where you can take a heating and air conditioner. I had a realtor show me this, and they'll take a picture of the label on the side.
Right.
And they'll scan it and they'll say, "Hey, can you tell me everything?" And they'll give when it was manufactured, if there's any recalls, like scary stuff, in seconds.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to do that. A lot of inspectors are doing that now, and they include it in their report.
Sure.
So I think there's an efficiency play. I think that's the key thing. But there's also a cost. Like if you think of on our side, if you have 4, 5, 6, 7 people that are doing jobs that are now, paperwork jobs and entering stuff into a system that can all be done through AI, you're now removing those salaries. And I know that's scary for people.
Yeah.
But the race right now for us is cost per loan. You got to get cost per loan lower.
Right.
And if you can do that, you can offer better rates to the consumer. And then that's the name of the game.
And I think right now you guys probably have exclusivity on that that
Oh yeah,
program,
of course,
I'm
yeah,
assuming.
yeah, of course,
but
yeah.
I think what's going to happen is then that's going to get mirrored and matched.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it's
ultimately
going to
it's gonna
take
be-
years to build, and so I think you need to be. Again, I don't think AI will replace a realtor. It will replace the realtor who does not embrace
AI.
the technology. And you know how we are sometimes. We oh, that's not going to apply to us, or this, we don't need to do this. And it's just one of those things where a lot of, I think, realtors can really transform their. I mean, you could say, put together a campaign, for after I go on a listing presentation and write out 8 emails of what to do, and it'll write all that out. Like, it can make you more efficient,
Right.
where you would have a marketing, or you'd pay someone to do it for you,
Right.
and you can do that all through AI. So I think that's where I see a lot of realtors doing
Yeah,
it.
it was interesting because I saw an AI thing. I don't know, it's probably 3 months ago, 2 months ago,
Yeah,
and they took a picture of my face,
yeah,
and then you just type script in,
yeah,
and I'm talking,
yeah.
and it looked like I was talking, and it was
Scary,
a little
yeah,
scary.
yeah.
There was a video I saw again on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it
Yeah.
was, and I was laying on the couch getting bored, and it's a wife calling her husband,
Yeah.
and calls his office, and a gal answers and says, "Hey, this is Stephanie. I'm Bill's
Yeah.
assistant. Did you need something?" He goes, "Well, this is his wife." "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, yeah.
And she's having a conversation. She hangs up and she calls her husband's personal line, going, "When did you hire a secretary?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could see it, but I have to think with those kinds of tools, they're going to be replicated so quickly, and start being dissipated to the masses. Again, you're
Yeah.
going to have the people that are doing 1-2 transactions a year that are they ever going to even
No.
know what any of that is?
No.
But even those people, the 1 or 2 transactions a year that they're doing are their parents or their grandma or their brother.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like they're fishing for business. It's
Exactly.
not like they're doing business.
Yeah,
like, the
I just think there's going to be a group of people that really, like, completely
Embrace it.
transform their business and really are going to. And I think I already see some of people, like, even in the crazy market that we're in,
Yeah.
like, really growing their business without, the amount of staff and people that they used to have.
And look at how quickly that happened.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
6 months ago, I looked.
So the guy on our team, the developer, he's a genius, but he said to me something that still sticks with me every day, and I say it all the time. But he said, "We're going to see the same technology like build over the last 20 years, like in the next 12 to 18 months. Like that's how quickly it's going to happen. Like it's just pretty soon. That's just the way things are going to be, and it's just going to give us. And there's going to be a group that uses it and leverages it, and then." Everyone else playing catch up after that.
It's kind of scary.
I know. Believe me, it's really scary. So, well, again, one of the ways we always end this is we say, if you weren't in real estate, okay, what would be kind of the dream? I know you enjoy Florida, and I know you're a boater, right? Yeah, yep. So, like, what would be the ideal job if money was not an object? For Bill outside of real estate.
Yeah, if money was not an object, there wouldn't be a job. It'd be done. Yeah, it's funny. I get people asking me now, how long are you going to do this?
Yeah.
And I have a standard answer. I'm going to do this until it's not fun anymore. Right now, it's fun. I'm really having a good time.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing, HomeSmart International approached me, and this was probably 5 years ago. So yeah, I'm big, and I love Florida. I love boating. I love the beach. I love volleyball. That's I drink rum. I drink a high-end rum called Zacapa, Guatemalan rum.
Yeah.
It was funny. HomeSmart International approached me because they said, "I know you're looking to ultimately get down to Florida. We want to do something in Florida." Now they've since done it, and they've opened some corporate offices and some franchise offices. But at the time, they said, "Bill, we'll give you Florida. Go create Florida.
Yeah.
And create it as a franchise. It's yours." And I thought about doing it. I have a couple of guys that I call on a pretty regular basis, my really tight group of friends, and they're all super successful. If you saw us in high school, you'd never imagine any of us were going to be successful.
That's like my group of friends,
But everybody is.
Yeah.
At least this group is. And I put it back to both of them. And one of my best friends, Jeff, approached me back, and he goes, "You're an idiot." Hey, what are you talking about? I go, "This would be a great opportunity."
Yeah.
He goes, "You're an idiot. When you come down to Florida, you know what you like to do? You like to drink rum, sit on the beach, play volleyball, go boating, and hang with me."
Your worlds are going to collide.
Work.
Your worlds are going to collide, as they say. Yeah.
And the biggest thing, and my other buddy said, he just asked one question. He says, "Is it going to take your focus off of Chicago?"
Yeah.
And that was the big trigger. And I go, "You know what? It will.
Yeah.
It will." And I was at like 350 agents back then. I would not be where we are right now if I took that opportunity.
Great. It's great that you recognize that, because it would have been easy to say, you know, if you had an ego
Palm
to say
trees,
like,
pool all
yeah,
day,
oh yeah,
sure,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it didn't work that way.
So anything you would like to do outside of this?
No, I will probably, I do love, and again, it's tied in with real estate. I love, rehabbing houses and not necessarily doing flips. A lot of times I'll do a fix and I'll keep it and I'll rent it out long term. I've got a number of properties right now. I enjoy that. I enjoy looking at a property and having the vision to open up walls and, do things a little bit different. If I was not running the company right now, let's say I don't think I'll ever retire.
Yeah.
I think even when I do go down to Florida, I'll be buying little condos and getting somebody else to turn them in Airbnbs or Verbos or whatever the heck they are.
It's funny because I talked, our owner, Victor at Rate said the same thing. He's like, well, what would I do if I retire? Like I've heard him, because we always ask him like, well, what kind of your plan is? Like, well, what would I do? Like, and I've heard that from a lot of successful people, is that it's not that they enjoy working, because, but you enjoy what you do. Okay. Oh, yeah. And it's like, when you have this responsibility and you're going and doing it, then all of a sudden one day that stops. We have a guy, Ron, who is on our executive team, and he said to me, he was so excited to retire, but he's like, then I realized, when I wanted to go play golf, all my buddies were like, well, I'm working.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, well, now what do I do? So he's back working. So I just think that that's kind of something that you can't get away from that drive.
Well, I have to imagine Victor's done the same kind of things that I've been focused at. Last 3 years, my focus has been this company has to not only run and substantiate, but grow in spite of me.
Yeah.
So yes, there's things I'm doing, and I'm kind of moving the pieces around from a 10,000 foot view. But I'm at a point now where if I wanted to, I could disappear for 2 months.
Oh yeah.
And I'll come back, and the company will be bigger than it was.
But I think the important thing for you too is you have a good quality of life. You're enjoying your family. You have 3 daughters. You're going to Florida.
Yep.
Like when you have a good quality of life, it makes work a lot easier.
100%.
When you don't have a good quality of life, and I think that's a lesson for everyone, is to build what you want and the quality of life that you want, and that's the most important thing. We can always complain about what we have, but you just got to build it the way that you want it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You talk to some people. I've talked to people my age who are like, just miserable. I've got to go.
Oh, yeah.
I have to work on Monday. I'm like, hey, it's cool. I got to work on Monday.
People always make fun of me because I always say my favorite day of the week is Monday, and they're always like, and it's like, I just love like that reset. When you start over and the clean slate. I just have a particular, by Friday, because I work so hard, like I'm reaching where I need to unplug a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
Same way.
Yeah. And so like Mondays are like my day to kind of like just hit it. I get most done. If you look at my schedules, Monday and Tuesday, that's when I get most of my stuff done. Is no distractions. I'm ready to go.
Yep.
And my wife's always like, what do you like Monday? Because you're not at home. I'm like, no, I like that clean slate every single week. That's why I think about it. Yeah.
And you're starting to plant the seeds.
Yeah.
You're working on projects, whatever it is. I'm the same exact way. I absolutely love Monday. It's rare that you won't see me work on Monday. I'll take a Friday off.
Yeah.
I'll rarely take a Monday off because for the exact same reason.
Do you golf?
No, I've got a bad shoulder from volleyball, so I can't do anything until I'm working on getting it fixed.
Okay. Well, we'll pickleball maybe.
Pickleball, yeah.
That seems to be the old man sport now.
Yeah. I got into it big time. And,
that's good. Yeah,
that old man. Yeah, I've got 70-year-old guys that'll kick my rear end.
I know, it's crazy. I know. I went not knowing how competitive it was, and I learned like really quickly that this isn't just to go and play and have fun. Like everyone was like super serious.
As you ever see these videos, you get this old guy playing ping pong against a young guy.
Yeah.
The young guy's running all over and he's slamming the thing, and the old guy's just. That's pickleball.
Yeah.
These guys, they know where it's going.
I know.
They just put it out. Put the
it's crazy. It's amazing how much that's taken off.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. Well, Bill, I appreciate the time. I appreciate your honesty and sharing everything that you did. I think it's a great story for people to hear. I think it talks a lot about resilience and, building something special, building the life that you want, as we say. So I just appreciate you taking the time, driving out here. I know you got a busy schedule. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Same. I'd like that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.